Certainly. Here are some examples of weird science experiments conducted by several countries. 1. The Soviet Union's dog head transplant. In the 1950s, Soviet scientist Vladimir Demikhov performed a series of experiments where he transplanted the head of one dog onto the body of another. These experiments aimed to explore the possibility of organ transplantation and the potential for life extension. 2. The United States MK-Ultra. In the 1950s to the 1970s, the CIA conducted a covert program called MK-Ultra. It involved experiments on human subjects, including the administration of mind-altering drugs like LSD, sensory deprivation, and psychological manipulation, with the goal of developing techniques for mind control and interrogation. 3. Nazi Germany's hypothermia experiments. During World War II, Nazi scientists conducted experiments on concentration camp prisoners to study the effects of extreme cold and hypothermia. These cruel experiments involved subjecting individuals to freezing temperatures for extended periods, often resulting in severe injuries or death. 4. Japan's Unit 731. In the 1930s and 1940s, the Japanese military conducted horrific experiments on humans in Unit 731. These experiments included vivisections, biological warfare tests, and exposure to deadly pathogens, causing immense suffering and death among the victims. 5. Canada's Duplessis Orphans Experiments. In the 1940s to the 1960s, orphan children in Quebec, Canada, were subjected to various unethical experiments. The children were subjected to electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and administration of unapproved drugs, often without consent or proper medical justification. 6. The Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment. Conducted by the United States Public Health Service from 1932 to 1972. This experiment involved withholding treatment for syphilis from a group of African American men, even after an effective cure became available. The study was conducted without informed consent, leading to unnecessary suffering and deaths. 7. The Soviet Union's Chernobyl Human Radiation Experiments. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986, Soviet authorities conducted experiments on humans exposed to high levels of radiation. These experiments aimed to study the effects of radiation on the human body, but they often lacked proper consent and ethical considerations. Certainly. Here are some additional examples of weird science experiments conducted by several countries. 8. United States Operation Paperclip. After World War II, the United States recruited German scientists, including former Nazi researchers, under Operation Paperclip. These scientists were involved in various controversial experiments during the war, such as human experimentation, forced labor, and the development of advanced weaponry. 9. Soviet Union's parapsychology research. The Soviet Union conducted extensive research on parapsychology, which included experiments on telepathy, psychokinesis, and remote viewing. The goal was to harness these alleged psychic abilities for military purposes, such as espionage and mind control. 10. China's two-child policy. In an attempt to control population growth, China implemented a strict one-child policy in the late 1970s, which was later revised to a two-child policy in 2015. The policy involved forced abortions, sterilizations, and other coercive measures to ensure compliance, resulting in significant human rights concerns and societal impacts. 11. France's isolating confinement experiments. In the 1960s, French scientist Michel Siffre conducted a series of experiments where he voluntarily isolated himself in caves to study the effects of prolonged isolation on the human mind and body. Siffre spent extended periods in darkness, without external time cues, to understand the impact of isolation on circadian rhythms and psychological well-being. 12. North Korea's human experiments. There have been reports and testimonies suggesting that North Korea has conducted disturbing human experiments on prisoners and political dissidents. These experiments allegedly involve forced medical procedures, drug testing, and biological weapons research, with a lack of ethical considerations and respect for human rights. 13. United States radioactive human experiments. In the mid-20th century, the United States conducted various experiments involving the intentional exposure of humans to radioactive substances. For instance, the experiments included injecting subjects with radioactive materials, exposing them to radiation, or conducting tests on unwitting patients to study the effects of radiation on the human body. 14. Soviet Union's telepathic dolphins. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union reportedly trained dolphins for military purposes, including using them in experiments related to telepathy. The intention was to explore the potential for dolphins to communicate telepathically and assist in underwater military operations. These examples shed light on various controversial and ethically questionable experiments conducted by different countries throughout history. They serve as reminders of the importance of ethical considerations, informed consent, and responsible conduct in scientific research. Thanks for